Here we go. History in the making. Green, green, green.
If you thought that leading lots of laps was important in winning a race, you'd be wrong, because the last two winners of the Cup Series have led a total of maybe 300 yards. Hi, this is Brett McMillan. You're listening to the O'Reilly Auto Parts Pit Reporters. Moving this week, Bruce Martin from Speed Sport and Alan Cavanna from NASCAR.com and PRN.
It's the O'Reilly Auto Parts Pit Reporters on the Performance Racing Network. Presented by O'Reilly Auto Parts, your professional parts people. Now, here's your host, Brett McMillan.
And welcome to the show. Glad to have Bruce and Alan here. And I guess I probably overstated it. 300 yards. I guess it only really matters if you lead like an inch.
That's pretty much it. It's whoever's first to the checkered flag, that's the winner.
But it is interesting when you think about it, Bruce. I mean, the last 2 weeks between Kyle Busch at Bristol and then Ross Chastain at Talladega, they didn't lead a single lap during the course of the race. But when the checkered flag flew, there they were coming out of turn 4 or coming to the checkered flag. And I think 300 yards may be an exaggeration.
It probably is, but in a lot of ways, that's just the way NASCAR wants it. They always want that uncertainty heading on the last lap. Who's going to win this race? We always had that at tracks like Talladega and at Bristol. Now that's returned. And in a lot of ways, it really shows the versatility of this new car. Yeah, the car had its problems at Martinsville. That wasn't a very good race for the new car, but the last couple of weekends have been pretty darn good, especially when you consider this car was not made to run on dirt. And it did pretty well at Bristol the second time on dirt, first time with this car.
Yeah, Alan, we need you to bring back your positive regression podcast or what, so you can tell us, so you can triangulate it for us and tell us exactly how far Ross Chastain did lead as everybody got out of his way on Sunday.
Yeah, and we could have with that podcast, too. I'm glad there are still fans. But one of my favorite sayings, Brett, is they don't ask how, they just ask how many, right? And no one will look back and wonder or worry that just one lap was led. They will say, Kyle Busch won the race, Ross Chastain won the race, and that's what makes it exciting. No one saw the Kyle Busch thing coming. Talladega, maybe. That's what it's set up for, to have those last lap passes, those close finishes. The Kyle Busch stuff that you and I were both there for to watch and see, get an up-close view of for that finish. That was just a special one to be at. So you never know, especially in this new generation of car. You never know what's going to happen.
And I think that, talk about this new generation of car, I mean, this is the thing that this car was built for. The car that Chastain won with at Talladega was the same car he won with at Coda.
I remember this year at Daytona at Portofino, there was Lenny Wood sitting over there one night. He'd just gotten to town, and of course the Wood brothers go to eat at Portofino every night. And I saw him over there, went over and talked, and he said, this is the closest we've come to stock car racing in 50 years. He says, no, not the stock car parts you get off the shelf at a car dealer, but the fact that these parts on this car are stock. I can buy the same parts that Rick Hendrick buys. I can buy some of the same parts Roger Penske buys. That these aren't parts that are made in the shop anymore. They're parts that you order that come from one supplier. And he says, this has been the closest that we've seen to stock car racing in the last 50 years. And the point you made about winning on a road course at Coda and winning on a super speedway like Talladega, that's exactly what we used to see 50 years ago.
Yeah, and Alan, to Bruce's point, I mean, these guys in the old days, 50 years ago, they didn't have a fleet of cars. They had a car, and it ran everywhere.
Yeah, and it's a testament to the competition level, because, look, do you think Trackhouse could have been doing this last year with last year's cars, the Gen 6, all the engineering that went into that? I don't think so. And look, there are still advantages to being Hendrick and JGR and Team Penske, but the fact that Trackhouse has been able to be this player so far so early, and Daniel Suarez has had plenty of speed as well, and now that Ross Chastain has won 2 victories, I mean, that's more than certainly more than Stuart Haas and a bunch of some significant teams have out there already. You can attribute a lot of it to the next-gen car. Obviously, you have to have the people, the drivers, but you have to have something of a playing field that, look, when the game changes, who's going to advance and who's going to figure out so quickly. And Team Trackhouse has done that. And it's honestly been entertaining, to say the least, and probably a little eye-opening for the competition, who didn't know what to expect. And now they've got a new player. And certainly when we get to the playoffs, they'll be there as well.
It was interesting early in the season, Bruce, when Trackhouse was running well, but missing on a few opportunities. People said, oh, they're missing their chances because other teams are going to catch up with them and pass them, and they're going to be left in the dust. I'm not convinced they're going to be left in the dust at this point. I think they're up there competing. I think this is where they're going to be the rest of the year.
Well, I definitely, with Ross Chastain, I think that he's really found something with that team that really works. It'd be great for the Hispanic community if Daniel Suarez could do the same thing. One other point I want to go back to when you talk about Trackhouse was when everybody went out to the LA Coliseum for the Busch Light Clash, Pitbull gets up there, performs in front of the crowd, bringing in a new audience. Now that team is actually winning races. Not just one race this season, it's already won twice. I wonder how many of those people at the LA Coliseum that became NASCAR fans because of Pitbull are now following Trackhouse Racing because of the success that they've achieved on the track.
What do you think, Alan?
Sure. I mean, it all matters, right? And winning helps. We have seen new owners. We have seen big sponsors. We have seen people with a lot of goodwill come in, but it was so hard to break in, right? It was so hard to be successful right away that trying to cultivate a new fan base, like it's hard to explain to a fan base or a new fan, yeah, we're going to finish 27th for a few years. Stick around, maybe we'll start winning. I think between the infrastructure that Justin Marks was able to purchase with Ganassi, that helped obviously. But then this perfect timing with the next gen car, with everything at least being something of a blank slate, perfect timing on so many fronts that when you start winning, that's the way you build a fan base. That's the way you start getting the excitement flowing. Because again, celebrities, entertainers, big money people have come in with sincere dreams, but sticking around for a few years trying to compete with the Hendricks and Joe Gibbs Racings of the world, that was never a good plan or one that was actually going to happen, right? But now it can. And that's what we're learning with this charter system.
And here's another part of the whole Trackhouse thing with Ross Chastain that reaches across just not the race fan, but into the general public. Fox and Friends was down at Talladega last weekend, Bruce, and they had Ross on Fox and Friends Monday morning. And they're all loving the watermelon story. And Ross, you know what? I mean, he's an eighth generation. He says, hey, I love promoting watermelons. And he's embracing this. He's not going, I'm tired of talking about watermelons. He's embracing this. And that's something that people are getting excited about and will grab the attention of the non-race fan.
And it also kind of brings back NASCAR drivers to some of the old roots that we always read about, the legends and all that. The guy's a watermelon farmer, okay? Okay, he wasn't a bootlegger. He wasn't out running the revenuers, but he's a watermelon farmer. And that really hits home to the average guy, the old school NASCAR fan. Plus, he's a younger driver, so that might impress some of the younger fans. But I think he's really been a great story because of that. And also, hey, if you've got a trademark that sets you apart from the other drivers, in his case, it's the watermelon, just write it out because it's the one thing that people can find to easily identify with him.
Yeah, Al, not everybody can do a backflip off the car like Carl Edwards used to do, but we all can smash a watermelon like Gallagher.
Yeah, hey, that's his thing, right? And you got to embrace it. I hate to bring up pro wrestling. People will be like, whatever. But, in pro wrestling, they call it gimmicks. People have finishing moves or what have you. You're known for something, right? Carl Edwards was known for his backflip. Noah Gragson starts a fire with the rubber that he burns off his tires. I mean, that's so cool. What does Ross Chastain have? That crowd went insane when he was holding that watermelon above his head. He could have held it there for 7 minutes, and they would have cheered the entire time. It only got better as he was holding that thing up over his head. It's awesome. And all those little things, that leads to social media clips. That leads to stories about watermelons appealing to the older generation. People love sharing that stuff on TikTok of a watermelon smash. I mean, all these little things. I mean, it's kind of a perfect storm. Old school fans or people that have followed Ross Chastain's career, they love the story of a blue collar ladder climb, right? So many people like to hate on people that had, rich families or what have you. And farmers aren't poor by any means. So don't take that as what I'm trying to say. There's plenty of money in farming. But, people like that ladder climb story. And he's checking all these boxes right now. And it's fun to watch.
All right. I said it earlier, Bruce. I think Trackhouse can maintain this. They've got 2 wins already this year. I think they continue to be one of the elite teams this year. Do you buy it?
Yes, and if you look at Justin Marks, what he's been able to do in his career, it's very impressive. There's just something about the guy when you talk to him, you see something. It's like that guy understands it. He knows what it is. He's one of the promoters of the Big Machine Music City Grand Prix, the big IndyCar race that they have on the streets of Nashville. He's involved in so many different aspects of motor racing that it's very impressive when you think about it. I mean, he built GoPro Motorplex up in Mooresville, the go-kart track. That's one of the best go-kart facilities in the country. And he's really become a multifaceted motorsports entrepreneur. And that's very impressive what he's been able to do. To see him cap it off by creating what is now a very good, if not championship caliber team, that's very impressive to see the route that he's taken.
You buying it, Alan? Are they going to be one of the elite teams for the rest of the year?
We'll see. I mean, I want to just temper expectations. They have a win at at a dirt track that we won't see again, and a super speedway that we see in the playoffs, so that's good. But you got to show up at all forms of tracks, especially those 1.5 miles, the bread and butters, especially when you think the playoffs. I still wonder, they still have to be beaten in the playoffs and beat elite teams like at Phoenix if they want to be considered legit championship contenders. But they're getting there. You can't. We count this with checkered flags, right? And they are tied with the most in terms of. I think William Byron has 2, Ross Chastain has 2. They're leading the way right now. So you got to believe it. You got to when the numbers tell you they've got the checkered flags, you got to believe it.
Well, each week on the O'Reilly Auto Parts Pit Report, as we give you a chance to go to GoPRN.com and vote in our poll. And this week's question is, how many wins will Trackhouse end the season with? And your choices are 2, 3 or 4, 5 or 6, or 7 or more. Last week we asked you, are you happy NASCAR is bringing the dirt track back to Bristol next year? This is interesting. We got 60% said yes. 40% said no. That's it. That's a positive.
What were those numbers last year when everybody was raising heck about the way the race went or didn't go the first time out? A lot of times when you try new ideas, they're not going to work very well the first time, but they can be pretty good after that.
All right. When we come back, we're going to talk about Talladega in general because this new car is racing differently than the old car. Find out how these guys felt like it went. Stay with us.
O'Reilly. If your vehicle squeals or grinds when you slow down or just isn't stopping like it used to, you may need new brake rotors and pads. Now through May 24th at O'Reilly Auto Parts, get 15% off a set of Brake Best Select or Import Direct brake pads and 2 rotors. Restore safe braking and save money now at O'Reilly Auto Parts or order online at O'ReillyAuto.com.
O'Reilly Auto Parts.
We want to help extend the life of your vehicle. Add Z-Max Micro Lubricant to the fuel and oil where it uses the fluids to reach internal parts. As it soaks into metal, Z-Max disperses harmful carbon buildup to help improve performance, reduce emissions, extend engine life, and increase fuel mileage. Buy Z-Max today at zmax.com or your local auto parts store. Help your vehicle run better with Z-Max Micro Lubricant.
There's more of the O'Reilly Auto Parts Pit Reporters still to come. This is PRN, the Performance Racing Network.
Hi, I'm PRN's Alexis Erickson. Want to listen to PRN anywhere you go? By downloading the PRN mobile app, you can listen to live race broadcasts and have on-demand access to your favorite shows like Fast Talk, Pit Reporters, Garage Pass, and PRN's At the Track. Download today to make sure you don't miss any of the action. Get the latest racing information at your fingertips with the PRN mobile app, available on Apple App Store and Google Play. Find more information at GoPRN.com.
Hey, this is Doug Rice of PRN. Make Monday night your appointment listening right here on Fast Talk.
First and foremost, he's just, I don't want to get crazy and say like a once-in-a-generation type talent, but he's all that.
I really expected more out of him and his team yesterday. Unfortunately, we didn't talk about or hear them very much because they didn't really do very much.
When manufacturers get behind their teams, we see manufacturers flex their muscle.
That's Fast Talk right here on PRN.
Check out all of our show pages on GoPRN.com to find archive shows and more. Now, back to the O'Reilly Auto Parts Pit Reporters with Brett McMillan.
And welcome back, along with Alan Cavana from NASCAR.com, PRN. And who else is giving you checks these days, Alan?
Oh, Speed Sport, iRacing, anybody. Love it.
That's right. Well, and Bruce Martin's here from Speed Sport, and I know that you got some other folks throwing you checks, too.
Forbes, some stuff at NBCSports.com. Got my own podcast, which is about to be sponsored, by the way. So do what it takes.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, glad you guys are getting well employed these days. I think it comes from anywhere, right? It's a different world.
5 times the work for half the pay.
But the key is there is pay.
Yes.
There is pay. All right. We talked about it going into the break, Alan, that Talladega looked different this year than it has in the past with this next-gen car. And I think we saw a little of it at Daytona. One of the interesting things we saw was that, like, the last car in line was having problems keeping up in the draft. And I thought that was an interesting phenomenon. And that was one of the things that stood out. What else stood out with you as you watched the race at Talladega, how this next-gen car raced differently than the old car did?
Well, I don't know if I saw too many differences. I mean, I saw the big packs early on in the race. They was ultra aggressive, and they were 3 and 4 wide. I thought far too early on in the race, and then they kind of they calmed things down just a little bit when it needed to. And we saw a single file, especially toward the end, and it really kind of screwed people up. We saw something more of a track position race. We didn't see some of the movers that were able to kind of go on their own. I think they pointed out on the broadcast a lot that there was a wide gap in between the top row and the bottom lane, and that it really took a lot for those drivers on top to really make moves and try to make it happen. They could, and when they got together, they would, and if a lot of them could get up there and work together, there was that top lane. But though that side drafting, maybe we didn't see as much of that as we had seen in the past. And again, there was a long green flag run that went single file. A lot of the people after the pit sequence, like Blaney and Bubba, who found themselves in the back after that pit sequence, they couldn't make anything up. There was just ran out of laps.
What'd you see, Bruce?
It seemed like like Alan pointed out, the length of the draft, how many cars could field the draft, seemed to be a few cars smaller than with the older car. What were we seeing? Maybe 5-car drafts, whereas in the past we might see 8 to 10. And it also struck me that at the end of the race, if you got stalled out in that top lane, that bottom lane just really flew right by you, is what happened on the, at the end of the race. And that was something that surprised me a little bit. And I'm also curious about the side draft, whether there's as much of a side draft off this car as we saw off the previous car. I think at Daytona they talked a lot about the side draft wasn't as strong as what they had remembered in the previous car.
I think that's something they've talked about a couple times this year, that, the car is designed not to have as much side draft, that the guys have been trying to get the side draft, that it's just not there.
Is that good for the sport, or is that bad for the sport? I know side drafting had become an element that a lot of people were starting to use like a science to be successful. Is that something that you think is good for NASCAR to eliminate the side draft? Does that help the field get better, or what?
I don't know, Alan. That's the science part of it. We'll go to you for the science, because to me, if you eliminate the side draft, I thought part of eliminating the side draft was to help the passing, that you're not getting held up when you try to go around somebody.
Yeah, I can only judge by what I saw, and I felt like I saw a good race that just played out. Where there was no real big one, right? That was kind of odd. We've never really seen the last stage go green like it did. So is that part of the racing? Is that a weird anomaly, how things go? I'm not sure. I think the drivers just have to adapt like they've had to learn to adapt to a lot of things. This car, the next-gen car, has changed so much where, there were the people that got so proficient at learning the Gen 6 way of side drafting and how these cars would work. But this is a whole new era. So it's going to be up to the drivers to figure out what's successful at a track like this. I don't know if side drafting is what makes it. I just know side drafting was the path to success in the old car. What's the path to success in the new car? We'll know in Daytona when they come around again.
Well, I know one thing that they did learn at Daytona, Bruce, is that these bumpers are curved. So when you start popping somebody, make sure you're squared up on them and not bumping it from the side.
Yeah, that's always been a tricky thing for drivers to do anyway, because there was always the sweet spot where if you hit them just right, you're both going to benefit. But if you got outside of that sweet spot, you could also end up going for a heck of a ride. One thing that I do like is if there, like Alan pointed out, there wasn't the big one. I think the sport in general, or at least the team owners, they could probably use a little bit of a break from the big ones, because I know over the years there's been a massive amount of torn up equipment at those two super speedways. If that could be minimized to a degree, still have exciting finishes, still have great passing and great racing, I think it would be a help to the sport, because after a while it got to be almost cliche that you would go to Talladega and see all these cars get torn up.
Yeah, you get down to like having 15 cars left at the end of the race, Al, and you're kind of going, okay, survive. It's a survival race more than anything else.
Yeah, I mean, they saved it for the last lap. I shouldn't say there wasn't a big one. Bubba might tell you there was a big one. He was hurting. I mean, right?
Yeah.
Kurt Busch, 2311 Racing, they had a big one. So there were plenty of teams that went home. The 14, they had a big, it wasn't a big wreck in terms of numbers, but they had big wrecks as well. So I think there are a few teams that would say that last lap was a plenty big one.
I still love Ross Chastain's comments at the end of the race. He goes, I went up there, I thought, well, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and push Kyle Larson to the win. That's fine. It's just, and then Kyle decides to go right. I thought, okay, well, I like Eric Jones. He's driving a Chevy, so I'll push Eric Jones to the win. And then he decides to go right. And there's nobody in front of me. So I just kept going straight.
Well, maybe that's also another example of what we can see with this new cars. You don't necessarily have to get the push or be pushed, but if you are in a situation like Ross found himself in, that the car might be able to have enough for you to get there on its own. That last lap was really intriguing because you had the car, Richard Petty's number 43 could have been in victory lane at Talladega. That would have been a nice little interesting note. And also Kyle Larson, anytime he wins, that's kind of a big deal. But I don't know if when that last lap started, if we necessarily expected to see that happen the way it played out. Like I said, when the white flag flew, I thought Eric Jones was going to probably hold on and win the race, and that all went by the wayside.
Yeah.
It's all about doing your homework. I mean, we have seen, especially at Talladega, Matt DiBenedetto not too long ago was in position to win. He went up and blocked. Brad Keselowski stayed on the bottom, did nothing, quote unquote, won the race. Last year, when Bubba took the lead and could have thrown a block to the outside lane, he didn't. And specifically on his radio, spotter said, stay down, stay on the bottom lane. Bubba won the race. Ross Chastain said he learned a lot in previous races, stayed on the bottom, won the race. Kyle Larson gave it up and said, I made a mistake. I have to learn some things, because he moved up to block and try to do some things, lost the race. So I think there's some homework to be done by some of these drivers, and that's what gets you to victory lane.
Alan Cavanna, putting out for a consulting fee.
Hey, pay me.
Blocking and tackling, that's what wins games.
There you go. All right, when we come back, Denny Hamlin is good for some sensitivity training. When will these guys learn? Stay with us.
Do you own a timeshare? Well, face the facts. You made a mistake. You made a bad purchase. A timeshare is not an investment. It's a money pit that continues forever. If you use your timeshare, that's great. But if you don't, and you want to legally get out of your contract, call my friends right now at the Timeshare Exit Hotline. They're an experienced team of lawyers who help good people like you get out of a timeshare contract that they just don't want. Don't throw away your money on maintenance fees. Use it for things you really want. We can help you end your timeshare contract and stop the money drain immediately. If you are ready to move on with your timeshare, call our team right now.
Cancel your timeshare now with a free call. 800-298-3173. 800-298-3173. 800-298-3173. That's 800-298-3173.
Want to hear one of our past shows? Visit GoPRN.com. This is PRN, the Performance Racing Network.
Hi, it's PRN's Brad Gilley. Did you know you could take PRN with you anywhere? That's right. By downloading the PRN mobile app, you can listen to our live race broadcast from anywhere. Make sure you don't miss a second of the action from the track. Download today for station listings and on-demand access to your favorite studio shows like Fast Talk, The Pit Reporters, or Garage Pass. Get all the latest racing information at your fingertips with the PRN mobile app. Download today, available in the Apple App Store and on Google Play.
For the latest NASCAR news without a restrictor plate, it's PRN's Garage Pass.
There's definitely been a few that have slipped away, but at the same point, we do have the most wins now in the series, which is great.
Right now, it appears that there's cars that are, at least a couple tenths faster than everyone else. It's not by accident. These four didn't all just learn how to be the best drivers in the sport, although they deserve their due credit.
I'm Mark Arrow for the station near you. Check us out at GoPRN.com.
Check us out on YouTube at GoPRN Live. Now, more of the O'Reilly Auto Parts Pit Reporters with Brett McMillan.
And welcome back, along with Bruce Martin from Speed Sport and Alan Cavana from the NASCAR.com, PRN, Speed Sport, et al. We're glad to have you with us. You enjoyed that, Alan?
Sure. Hey, keep them coming.
Keep them coming. We had a little situation with Denny Hamlin after the race on Sunday where he posted what he intended to be a joke towards his friend Kyle Larson, but he used a meme that was racially inappropriate. Eventually took it down, apologized for it, but NASCAR has now ordered Denny Hamlin to undergo some sensitivity training this week. And I just, it's pretty obvious. NASCAR's made their case, Bruce, pretty clearly that anything like this that they feel like is racially insensitive will be dealt with in this way. So you feel like they're right in this punishment?
Probably. In 2022, the line is so razor thin what's acceptable, what isn't acceptable, that if you have to think about it, then it probably is something you shouldn't have done in the first place. And I'm sure that in Denny's case, that wasn't the intent. I haven't seen the meme, so I can't really make a comment on that, but it seems like the level of scrutiny on anything like that is just so hypersensitive these days that sometimes you have to think not once, but twice, but three times before you hit the send button.
Yeah, and I think, like you got to think. And I think the problem is in some cases, there's no thinking. It's, hey, this is funny, let's do it. And Alan, I know this is a situation that, we all run into time and time again. And we see it across all lines of, businesses, not just racing, but this is the one we're living in right now.
Yeah, and it's a world of respect, and it's a world of not tweeting out racial stereotypes. I mean, it seems pretty easy. It just doesn't pass the smell test, and you got to think twice. Look, Denny Hamlin is the driver, a face of a huge organization in terms of FedEx, in terms of Joe Gibbs Racing, and he's now an owner. Again, unfortunately, intent doesn't matter in situations like these. You got to think twice, if not three times, and Yeah, you got to take the deserved punishment that goes with it, because NASCAR can't stand for this, and I wouldn't think a lot of people that are represented by the companies that Denny represents want to go along with this. So it's the world we live in. It is a just punishment, and it had to be dealt with and addressed, and it was.
I think as you look at this, and the three of us are all in the same boat, and anybody that works in this business, not only the drivers but members of the media, we all shoulder some responsibility in situations like this, where we are always in the public eye, whether or not we're on the air, right?
I was thinking about this on the drive over, and I thought, if they had sensitivity training back when we got started covering this sport in the late 70s, early 80s, the whole press box would have had to go to sensitivity training.
Yeah.
That was like the way it was like back then. It wasn't good. But at that time, I'm not so sure a whole lot of people in society really knew any better. But now it's almost the pendulum has swung to the point where you've got to think about that every day. Don't say anything that could be construed as being anything offensive to anybody, because it's going to come back and haunt you.
Yep. And Alan, I know you spent time in not only local TV, but network TV, and the same. We're all in the same boat. We all have to stop and think. I mean, you could be overheard in a restaurant out dining with your wife, and you've got to be careful even in your private time.
Yeah, if I'm out dining with my wife, that is not private. If I post something on Twitter, that is not private. And even if I did it in private, that doesn't make it right. So yeah, this is a public forum. Twitter is a public forum, no matter how famous or infamous or not famous you are. There are consequences for your actions.
All right, when we come back, Kyle Busch isn't saying much about his future with Joe Gibbs when asked about it. Gibbs still looking for a sponsor for the 18 car for next year. Find out what these guys think the future will hold. Stay with us.
O'Reilly. Improve your gas mileage and save money with Fuel System Cleaner from O'Reilly Auto Parts. Right now, get 2 bottles of Lucas Fuel Injector Cleaner for just $10. Plus, earn double O Rewards points and get your next reward even faster. For a clean, lubricated, more efficient fuel system, stop by O'Reilly Auto Parts today or shop online at O'ReillyAuto.com.
O'Reilly Auto Parts.
The NASCAR season is here, and in 2022, the fans return to Dover Motor Speedway. Be there live in person in the seats April 29th to May 1st, featuring the Duramax Dryden 400 NASCAR Cup Series race. Adult tickets start at just $60. Plus, kids 12 and under can get in for just $10 on Sunday and free on Friday and Saturday. Experience great racing, free fun for all ages, and the best tailgating around. Get your tickets today at DoverSpeedway.com. That's DoverSpeedway.com.
We've got more of the O'Reilly Auto Parts Pit Reporters in a moment. This is PRN, the Performance Racing Network.
Start your engine!
Crank him up, Kane. Crank him up.
Kyle Busch to the outside. Elliott gets a nose out in front off 4.
Chastain in turn 1 drives it in deep to the bottom of the racetrack. He'll slide up in front of William Byron.
In the wall, Austin Dillon. Kyle Busch has been involved in this wreck as well. They come sliding sideways across the start-finish line.
Battle for the lead up front. Down on the inside, it's going to be Martin Truex Jr. trying to get around Daniel Suarez.
Trouble. That car spinning, and this might be the big one here out of turn 4.
Now we've got a half a dozen cars sliding through the infield grass. Joey Logano is collected in that.
And around goes Austin Cindric in the middle of the field. The field scatters left and right. Looks like we've got another car spinning.
Ross Chastain door to door with Austin Cindric. Chastain is on the
When the racing action takes us to Texas, Sonoma, Bristol, Atlanta, New Hampshire, Charlotte, Circuit of the Americas, or Vegas, it's here on PRN, the Performance Racing Network. Follow at PRN Live on Twitter for show news and information. Now more of the O'Reilly Auto Parts Pit Reporters with Brett McMillan.
Is your vehicle no longer stopping like it used to, or does it squeal, shake, or grind when you press the brakes? Well, don't miss the spring brake deals at O'Reilly Auto Parts. Their professional parts people will help you find the brake parts and supplies that you need to do the job right the first time. Through May 24th, you can get 15% off when you buy a set of Brake Best Select or Import direct brake pads with 2 rotors. Stop by O'Reilly Auto Parts today or visit O'ReillyAuto.com. And we're welcome back along with Alan Cavana and Bruce Martin. Brett McMillan, glad to have you with us. All right, last weekend, Alan, people were asking Kyle Busch about his future with Joe Gibbs Racing. We know that M&M's Mars is leaving the team after this year. Kyle basically said, whatever happens, happens. And so I find it hard to believe he's that laissez-faire about the whole thing. When you start peeling back the onion, obviously people start going, well, there's Ty Gibbs, Joe's grandson, ready. He's doing great in the Xfinity Series. I don't know that Ty is ready to move up to the Cup Series yet, but people are ready to put him in that ride. If Kyle abandons it, and we know at this point, or we believe at this point, there's no sponsor yet for the 18 next year. So how do you see this all playing out?
Yeah, I don't want to fill in too many blanks or jump to too many conclusions, right? I mean, we saw the displeasure that Kyle Busch was talking with. We saw the uncertainty. It surprised me how publicly, with that attitude that he would bring, especially during a time, long relationship with Joe Gibbs. But that showed me there was frustration as well. I suppose that one of the best drivers on the planet doesn't have a deal signed, sealed, and delivered quite yet. So that I see, but I'm not ready to jump to the conclusions. People start speculating, is it because Ty Gibbs is going to come up and they're going to get rid of Kyle Busch? I mean, that just sounds ludicrous, right? I mean, that sounds crazy. So I'm not making any of those assumptions. If I have to take anything away from this, is that unfortunately, no matter who you are as a driver, it takes a long time to get a sponsorship commitment. And maybe that's where the frustrations come in. But it didn't seem as unified as I thought it would be, right? You would think both owner and driver would have the same level of frustration, and it seemed like there were 2 different levels there.
Bruce, how do you see it?
Well, he hit the key there. It takes a long time to get a sponsorship deal together, and the way I look at it, it's the last week of April. Maybe the 2 sides just aren't there yet in terms of getting that right sponsorship deal together. Joe Gibbs won a lot. He especially won a lot when he was coach of the Washington Redskins, and he always had a building block player that was on those teams that won Super Bowls. It would really be hard to imagine him just letting Kyle Busch go, especially when we all know Kyle's still got a lot of really good years left in him as a race driver. Now, but then again, though, maybe Kyle has some other goals and dreams of his own that he wants to achieve. I certainly would not recommend going out and becoming a team owner. I've known a lot of drivers that say that's not something they want to do. He's tried it. We'll see. But I think it's as much a description of the way corporate America is right now. Maybe they're talking to somebody that's interested, but they're not ready to show any more interest to really commit yet.
It's going to be interesting to see how it all plays out. Maybe Kyle's holding out and wants a long-term contract until Brexton's ready to step into his shoes.
Hey, you never know. That certainly, you never know what pops up.
I mean, LeBron's trying that in the NBA. LeBron's trying that in the NBA, right?
What?
LeBron's trying that in the NBA.
Yeah, I mean, you want to race with your son, so who knows how far that goes. But let's be clear. I mean, Kyle Busch, of all the things he's done, he is still statistically not even in his prime yet. If you listen to the old positive regression, drivers peak at age 39. I believe Kyle is 37. So this next contract, statistically, historically, is when he will be at the tippy top of his game. So I could see one of the best drivers in the world at the top of his game, deserving to be paid and wanting to get a huge paycheck. And if the dominoes aren't falling right, if the market isn't there, really what sets the market is your ability to go somewhere else, right? If there's nowhere else to go, that kind of caps how much one team will offer you, right? If there's no fear in losing you. So I don't know if that's what's on Kyle's mind, is trying to create that market and trying to create an alternate to Joe Gibbs Racing. Why you would want that, I'm not sure. But if you want to get that number up and you feel it's deserved and the best should be paid like the best, don't get me wrong, then I could see some frustrations. It's the public part of it I don't understand quite yet.
Do you think, Bruce, that would Kyle Busch be interested in a Brad Keselowski type ownership stake at Joe Gibbs Racing?
I'm sure that if he was offered that might be something that would really be something for him to consider. I know it rejuvenated Brad to a degree. At least it seemed that way at the very beginning of the season. Since that time, we're waiting for the next little step to see how well those two are joined together and are more cohesive. But that might be an option, and that also might be something. Like I said, it's the last week of April, and there's still a long way to go before these two guys probably are going to sit down and hammer out a real deal.
Yep, absolutely. All right, coming up this week, we have Dover. Last year, Hendrick finished 1, 2, 3, 4. Can we expect more of the same? Stay with us.
You don't sit behind a desk every day to earn a living. You're out and about making it happen. And sometimes you get a little bit behind on your paperwork, like bookkeeping and paying your taxes. It's easy to get behind on paying your taxes. It happens to the best of us. And you know what happens next. The big, bad IRS comes knocking on your door. And when that happens, you need to call the good old boys at the Tax Doctor. Let them do what they do best. Deal and negotiate with the IRS so you pay the lowest you can in back taxes that the law allows. We are a 100% U.S.-based company, and we've saved our clients millions over the years in back taxes. If you owe $10,000 or more in back taxes, call my friends right now at the Tax Doctor and learn more.
800-541-0224. 800-541-0224. 800-541-0224. That's 800-541-0224.
More of the O'Reilly Auto Parts Pit Reporters in a moment. This is PRN, the Performance Racing Network. Every Monday night on PRN, it's Fast Talk.
We had 32 lead changes in this event without having any green flag pit stops, which is a pretty spectacular thing.
To find out what's going on in NASCAR, Fast Talk is the place to be.
I heard Dale Earnhardt, Sr., tell Chris Economac, until you sit in that car at 140 degrees, at 180 miles an hour, and have to make a split-second decision, don't judge what I do.
That's Fast Talk right here on the Performance Racing Network.
The NASCAR season is here, and in 2022, the fans return to Dover Motor Speedway. Be there live in person in the seats April 29th to May 1st, featuring the Duramax Dryden 400 NASCAR Cup Series race. Adult tickets start at just $60. Plus, kids 12 and under can get in for just $10 on Sunday and free on Friday and Saturday. Experience great racing, free fun for all ages, and the best tailgating around. Get your tickets today at DoverSpeedway.com. That's DoverSpeedway.com.
Download our free mobile app to listen to the show and more great PRN content on the go. Now, back to the O'Reilly Auto Parts Pit Reporters.
And welcome back, along with Bruce Martin from Speed Sport and Alan Cavana from NASCAR.com and PRN. I'm Brett McMillan. Glad to have you with us, Bruce. Before we get to Dover, Hendrick did announce this week that they're bringing back the 88 car in the Xfinity Series. They're going to have 5 races in the Xfinity Series that they're going to split between Alex Bowman, Kyle Larson, and Chase Elliott. We had the 3 car brought back up in the Xfinity Series last week, so the 88 car will make a return.
Well, that's always pretty cool. When you get these iconic numbers back on the track, there's always going to be a segment of fans that remember what it was about that number that made it so special to them. So all the Dale Jr. fans that remember the time that he had the 88 car should really enjoy seeing that back on the track.
Yeah, that's going to be pretty cool. And Hendrick, really haven't been running Xfinity cars at all, have they, Alan?
No, and I think this is a 5th JRM car. If I believe it's Junior Motorsports, it'll help them out doing that. But hey, it's a way to get, HendrickCars.com out there, right? Sell a little merch. And maybe it's a way for Rick to keep his drivers away from the dirt track by employing them on Saturdays as well.
I don't know. Kyle does pretty good at the dirt tracks.
I know.
Yeah.
So but keeps them closer.
There you go. Well, Dover this week, only trip to Dover this year. The second straight year they've only had one race at Dover. And this is a place last year, Bruce, that Hendrick cars finished first through fourth. I mean, that's pretty impressive. Can they even come close to duplicating that this time?
Can they do it? Sure. Will they do it? Remains to be seen. Different car. We'll see how well this generation car works at Dover. But as we all know, the teams with the most resources have the most engineering and the most computer data that they can come up with for that to try to replicate the success. I don't think they'll finish 1 through 4, but they could.
What do you think, Alan? Is, really, we're starting to stretch here where I think we're going to learn a lot more about this next-gen car in the coming weeks when you start looking at Dover, Darlington. We've got, we're going to have the All-Star race at Texas, Charlotte. I mean, we've got a lot of these intermediate-sized tracks coming up here in the next, 8 weeks or so, which is what this car was really kind of designed to excel on outside of maybe road courses. And we got a road course thrown in there as well with Sonoma. And so far this year, it seems to have performed pretty well on these tracks. So now this is kind of be in the wheelhouse. So we're going to find out how much these teams have learned about it, haven't we? Or won't we?
We are. And this will be an important stretch when you think about the playoffs as well. And look, Hendrick, I think you could put the stamp on it that they've done the best so far. If you think of Alex Bowman, Kyle Larson, William Byron getting the wins that they have. Chase Elliott not making much noise, but look who's the point leader, right? I know he'd rather have the victories, but winning that regular season championship is the equivalent of 3 race wins in terms of the playoff points. So they're doing just fine. If, as they always say, if you're knocking on the door in the top 5 all the time, you're going to compete for those wins, certainly eventually, if not this weekend. I will be picking a Hendrick car to win this weekend because of their past record, even though it's a new car. I think overall with Next Gen this year, they have been the top team. They've figured something out a little faster than others. Maybe it's the Chevys in general, but I still give Hendrick the nod when it comes to best team so far. So for that point and their history with the drivers at Dover, I'm certainly picking a Hendrick driver this weekend.
And it's interesting, Bruce, everywhere we've gone this year, except for the dirt track, where we talked about the dirt more than we did about the next-gen car. But we've talked about, you throw out the records, which for the most part you do because this car is so different. But it seems like by the time we drop the checkered flag, it's been the same cast of characters that have run well at the track in the past, that are running well at that track again, regardless of the car.
And does that really shock anybody? I think that that's the reason why they're stars, and that's the reason why they are the same cast of characters. I hate cliches. I mean, I really hate cliches, but they always use that term, the cream rises to the top.
Yeah.
Well, apparently those teams have certainly figured those places out. When you were going down that list of tracks that NASCAR is going to compete at over that stretch, don't forget, they're going to have a new race at Gateway.
Mm-hmm.
And that will be interesting to see how this car handles on what is basically a flat paperclip shaped oval, 1.25 miles long. So that'll be an interesting test for that car to see how that does. I like the fact the schedule has gotten to be so varied. It's not like that. It's a long way from the day where you could pretty much just close your eyes and you already knew what the schedule was going to be all the way through the rest of the season. Now they've shook it up to a degree and have added some new things in there that have really made it interesting. So this will be a good indication of just how versatile this next-gen car really is.
Are you surprised, Alan, that we've seen pretty much the same guys who run well at a track continuing to run well at the track, regardless of the car?
Not at all. I mean, that's like saying, I wouldn't be surprised if Steph Curry signed with the Hornets and still hit 3-pointers. I mean, these guys are good, right? These are some of the best drivers in the world for a reason. You give them competitive equipment, regardless of what it is, they are going to excel, especially where their natural inclinations are. Some drivers excel at other tracks better than others. But we have seen some new players. We can't discard that. I mean, Chase Briscoe getting the victory. Ross Chastain, we mentioned him. Tyler Reddick, so close to that victory, but also showing tons of speed. Daniel Suarez, you expect him to get a win pretty soon because of the speed that they are showing. So we have seen some new players show up at these races, show a lot of speed. Some of that is next gen. Some of that's the talent they've had that the switch to the next gen can finally kind of show off. They've just been waiting for an opportunity, or frankly, they've just been coming into their own with experience. Experience does matter.
It's almost, I hate to start looking at points already, Bruce, because it's really, this is one of those things you start looking, to me, you think about it after like the 4th of July, we start looking at points, but at some point they become crucial. We're not going to have 17 winners. We're not going to have a winner left out. But at the same time, you start looking at, Denny Hamlin. He's got one top 10 finish this year, and that's the win at Richmond. Those guys can't seem to get out of their own way. At what point does the win look like an anomaly and frustration starts to build for that team?
I would say pretty soon, although I would have to say that the victory that he had was fairly impressive, the way he tracked everybody down at the end of the race. And I think that most people want to see a race finish with the guy passing his way up to the lead. But this is certainly not what we're used to seeing from Denny Hamlin. And there has to be some frustration over there. The news that has happened to him this week only has to compound that frustration.
What do you think about that, Alan?
Yeah, it's been a struggle overall. And just look at Talladega. They didn't fill the gas tank up, right? They were leading and had to drop out of the lead because they were going to run out of gas, which they did anyway. And so I think that came back to a pit stop foul. And there have been that win is going to get more and more valuable the more they kind of struggle, or if they don't turn things around, because we are looking, we're not even considering Denny Hamlin a quote unquote bad season, and we're not worried about him because we know he's in the playoff. That one position, second to first at Richmond, is so vital to their season right now, because without it, that would be one of the top stories of the year, is how much they are indeed struggling. That win masks a lot of things. Joe Gibbs in general, you heard it from Toyota officials. They were embarrassed after Phoenix, because Phoenix is where you win a championship. I don't think they had a car in the top 10. Martinsville, another one on the road to the championship. Another struggle for Joe Gibbs Racing. And they have stuff that they need to fix. And that win, yes, it shines bright. The dirt victory, yes, shines bright. But there are reasons for frustrations there right now.
And one organization I think that has just probably surprised a lot of people how well they've run. They may not have the finishes to show, but it's RCR. And you look at RCR with a combination of that Petty GMS, which really is, kind of a partner team with them. They don't have the finishes necessarily, but Austin Dillon's 13th in points right now. He's got 5 top 10s. Tyler Reddick, he's 15th in points. He's got 4 top 10s, but he's led a ton of laps so far this year. You had Eric Jones darn near won the race at Talladega. He's 17th in points, and he's got 3 top 10s, and Ty Dillon has shown well at times.
They certainly have some good young talent over there. It's a matter of them continuing to improve. And that's another team that's got an awful lot of fans in this sport that would love to see it do well. Richard Childress Racing harkens back to, think of all the eras that he connects with in race fans. So I'm sure there's a lot of people out there would love to see that young group of drivers that he got live up to their reputation and to be able to continue and improve upon what they're already doing.
Is it that RCR, you think, Alan, has improved, or is it Chevy has improved, or is it a combination of both?
A combination of everything. We hear the story of ECR and Hendrick finally working together. They're merging and at least talking to each other, an alliance, if you will, with their engine department has helped everybody, right? That is a tide that has raised the ships. Tyler Reddick only getting better, and the team over there. Remember how much research and development that RCR really put into the next gen for the entire sport. Some of that's got to rub off on the team and having something of a small advantage, because they were so behind the next gen effort in testing it out and having the help and research to make the next gen car happen. I think some of that's benefiting them. And again, Tyler Reddick improving, Austin Dillon running well. That is a team where both should be able, they are both playoff worthy, wins or without. But with you have the speed, you should be able to pull off a few wins, but they should both be playoff cars. Anything less than that would be a disappointment.
Yeah, they don't want another year like last year where it was one or the other of them, or one of them knocked the other one out of the playoffs. That was not fun.
Never a
for
good
RC.
situation on a team where you got to beat your teammate in order to get in, and then that knocks him out. That's never really a good situation.
Not a happy day for RC. All right, when we come back, White Flag Lap. Stay with us.
O'Reilly. If your vehicle squeals or grinds when you slow down or just isn't stopping like it used to, you may need new brake rotors and pads. Now through May 24th at O'Reilly Auto Parts, get 15% off a set of Brake Best Select or Import Direct brake pads and 2 rotors. Restore safe braking and save money now at O'Reilly Auto Parts or order online at O'ReillyAuto.com.
O'Reilly Auto Parts.
Grime, friction, wear, destructive words when it comes to an engine. Adding Z-Max microlubricant to your oil and fuel allows it to soak into metal to disperse harmful carbon deposits. You wouldn't wax a car with dirt on it. Don't run your engine without Z-Max. Help improve performance, reduce emissions, extend engine life, and improve fuel mileage with Z-Max microlubricant. Get Z-Max today at zmax.com or your local auto parts store.
Today's broadcast is brought to you by Blue Emu Maximum Pain Relief, the official pain relief cream of the Performance Racing Network.
There's more of the O'Reilly Auto Parts Pit Reporters still to come. This is PRN, the Performance Racing Network.
From the granite state of New Hampshire down through North Carolina and all the way to California, the Speedway Motorsports Incorporated footprint is truly national.
Start your engine! This is Bristol.
Hey, drivers, light these bad boys up!
From 0 to wow.
We've got a car in trouble, and that, guys, will bring out a caution. Fans are on their feet.
SMI action is never ending.
The cure for the common NASCAR show is PRN's Garage Pass.
He's one of the hungriest drivers that I've ever seen. Other than his family, that's all he wants to do. That's all he thinks about.
We haven't run as well as we'd like, but our team's done a great job and put us in position to have a chance at winning a couple races. So we just keep grinding away. You just never know, week to week when you're going to be in position, when you're not going to be in position.
Check us out at GoPRN.com. It's 4 minutes that will keep you talking for hours.
Get your short track racing fix with PRNs at the track. Visit GoPRN.com. Now, more of the O'Reilly Auto Parts Pit Reporters.
And welcome back. Time now for our White Flag Laps. And first up from NASCAR.com and PRN, it's Alan Cavana.
Hey, Brett. Yeah, we talked a little about it earlier, but 3 words that really resonated for me from Talladega. Ask Joe Gibbs. That's how Kyle Busch responded multiple times when asked about his future at the organization. It didn't have a tone of a driver who was happy, who had just won the race at Bristol a week earlier, and it certainly didn't come across as a driver who sounded optimistic about the situation. Finding a sponsor for one of the best drivers on the planet about to enter his prime, that should be easy. But clearly, at this moment, there's no deal to announce until it's done. So it puts Busch's future at JGR in something of a question. I worry about both sides of this because is Kyle's attitude really an indication of how bad things are? Now, reporters did ask Joe Gibbs, and he said implied a deal was imminent. They hope to get things done real quick. But even if it isn't, there's a better answer than airing dirty laundry. Kyle Busch knows that, which makes me wonder why he would do it in such a public manner like he did. He is one of the best. He deserves a big payday. And for both sides, I hope it gets done sooner than later so they can take in that dirty laundry and keep it clean.
I like that. And they need a Tide sponsorship from Bristol. Thanks, Al. Appreciate it. Next up from Speed Sports, Bruce Martin.
In any sports calendar, there's always magical months. October means the World Series. March Madness means the NCAA basketball champion is going to be crowned. In auto racing, that month is May. And we're now approaching the month of May, which to any auto racing fan in the world knows is the greatest month in racing. Formula One has the Monaco Grand Prix. NASCAR has the Coca-Cola 600 at Charlotte Motor Speedway, the true endurance race in stock car racing. And, of course, there's the oldest and grandest race of them all, the Indianapolis 500, which this year will be held for 106th running. You might have heard of one of the drivers that's going to be competing this year. It's a guy named Jimmy Johnson. To add his name to that historic list of drivers that have competed in the Indy 500 is something I think all race fans should take pride in, because he really represents the greatest of what NASCAR has to offer, and now he's getting a chance to showcase that on the world's greatest stage of racing, the Indianapolis Motor Speedway.
Going to be interesting to watch and see how he does there, and I know a lot of NASCAR fans will be keeping an eye. Maybe he'll come back and do the double sometime. Yeah, maybe not. He's in good enough shape to do it. All right, Alan, you said you're going with a Hendrick driver this week at Dover. Who are you going to go with?
William Byron,
All right.
Charlotte's own.
Bruce, how about you?
I'm going to go with Alex Bowman, just to be different.
All right. Talk to you next week.
The O'Reilly Auto Parts Pit Reporters was presented by O'Reilly Auto Parts, your professional parts people. This is PRN, the Performance Racing Network.